At 5, he was already composing music. At 6, he was performing before the monarchs of Europe. By 35, he was gone, leaving behind more than 600 compositions, and a mystery that is still debated today. How did an ordinary boy become a name the entire world still remembers nearly 3 centuries later? This is the story of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. January 27th, 1756. In the small Austrian city of Salzburg, a boy was born to the musician Leopold Mozart and his wife, Anna Maria. They named him Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. On that cold winter day, no one could have imagined that this child would one day become one of the most celebrated composers in human history. While Leopold was teaching his eldest daughter, Maria Anna, known in the family as Nannerl, young Wolfgang was almost always nearby. He carefully watched every movement of her fingers, listened to every note, and seemed to absorb music, as if he had been born with an instinctive understanding of it. At first, no one thought much of it. They assumed the little boy simply enjoyed sitting beside his sister during her lessons. But one day, something happened that even Leopold did not expect. When Wolfgang was about 5 years old, he walked over to the harpsichord and began playing the same melodies Nannerl had just been practicing. He repeated them with remarkable accuracy, and then started adding little musical ideas of his own. At first, Leopold dismissed it as a coincidence. But the more he watched his son, the more convinced he became that this was no ordinary gifted child. He was witnessing an extraordinary musical talent. From that day on, what had begun as lessons for his daughter gradually became lessons for both children. Leopold devoted himself to developing Wolfgang's remarkable gift, unaware that the young boy from Salzburg would soon amaze all of Europe. By the age of 6, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's extraordinary talent could no longer be hidden. Leopold Mozart realized that remaining in Salzburg would mean allowing this remarkable gift to fade into obscurity. He made a bold decision to take Wolfgang and his sister Nannerl on a grand tour across Europe. In the 18th century, such a journey was anything but comfortable. The family traveled thousands of kilometers in cramped horse-drawn carriages, crossing rough roads for weeks at a time. They endured rain, freezing weather, exhaustion, and constant uncertainty. Yet Leopold believed Europe had to hear his son. Their first performances took place before German princes and noble families. Audiences expected to see another gifted child. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary. As soon as the young Mozart touched the keyboard, the room fell silent. He played with astonishing confidence and effortless brilliance, as though music flowed naturally through him. The journey soon brought them to Vienna, one of Europe's greatest musical capitals. There, Mozart performed before members of the imperial court. Contemporary accounts describe a child capable of dazzling improvisations, repeating complex melodies after hearing them only once, and astonishing audiences with feats that seemed almost impossible. His performances left everyone in awe. Next came Paris, the cultural heart of Europe. The French aristocracy embraced the young prodigy, while newspapers began reporting on the miraculous child from Salzburg. His reputation spread rapidly beyond the borders of Austria. Their greatest success, however, came in London, where the family spent more than a year. There, Mozart met Johann Christian Bach, the youngest son of Johann Sebastian Bach. Their friendship deeply influenced the young composer's musical development. During his stay in England, Mozart composed his first symphonies, taking his earliest steps from gifted child to genuine composer. Wherever the young Mozart appeared, concert halls filled with eager audiences. Kings, emperors, diplomats, noble families, and celebrated musicians all wanted to witness the child whose talent had become the talk of Europe. To some, he was a miracle of nature. To others, he was an unsolved mystery. It seemed that the entire world was opening its doors to the young Wolfgang. Yet behind the applause and admiration, another story was quietly beginning. A life of endless travel, relentless expectations, and sacrifices that would shape the rest of his short life. While Europe admired the extraordinary child, few people stopped to consider the cost of his success. Behind every standing ovation was a childhood that Wolfgang Mozart was slowly losing. Year after year, the Mozart family continued their endless journey across Europe. Thousands of kilometers in cramped horse-drawn carriages, freezing nights, rough roads, and constant exhaustion became a normal part of life. Every new city meant another concert, another audience, and even greater expectations. The exhausting travels took a heavy toll on the family's health. Wolfgang and his sister Nannerl became seriously ill several times, suffering from dangerous fevers and infections. Yet as soon as they recovered, the journey began again. There was little time to rest. To Leopold Mozart, his son's talent was a miracle. But it also became the mission of his own life. He demanded perfection, arranged performance after performance, and carefully controlled every step of Wolfgang's career. Every mistake felt like a setback that could not be tolerated. From an early age, Wolfgang's life followed a strict routine. Endless rehearsals, public performances, meetings with influential people, and constant travel left almost no room for an ordinary childhood. While other children played outside, he spent his days at the keyboard and his evenings performing before demanding audiences. Despite the admiration of thousands, Mozart often felt alone. He was surrounded by kings, nobles, and famous musicians, yet he had almost no friends his own age. He learned to speak with the greatest minds of Europe long before he had the chance to simply be a child. And yet, it was through these endless journeys that the future composer was being shaped. Every country, every performance, and every encounter became part of the musical voice that would one day transform the history of classical music. While Europe admired Mozart's music, he increasingly felt trapped by his own success. Officially, he served the Archbishop of Salzburg, where absolute obedience was expected from every court musician. But for someone with Mozart's talent, that life was becoming impossible to accept. His conflicts with the Archbishop grew more intense. Mozart refused to spend his life composing only what he was ordered to write. He wanted the freedom to choose his own performances, create the music he truly believed in, and decide the direction of his career. In the 18th century, that was a bold and risky ambition. In 1781, Mozart finally reached his breaking point. After a bitter dispute, he left the Archbishop's service and moved to Vienna, the musical capital of Europe. It was a leap into the unknown. For the first time in his life, he gave up financial security in exchange for artistic freedom. It was in Vienna that Mozart grew close to Constanze Weber. Despite objections from his family and ongoing financial uncertainty, the couple married in 1782. Constanze became far more than his wife. She became his closest companion and stood by him through the most difficult years of his life. Freedom changed everything. It was in Vienna that Mozart began composing the works that would become some of the greatest masterpieces in the history of music. One after another, his operas captured audiences and have continued to inspire the world for more than 2 centuries. In 1786, the Marriage of Figaro premiered. Bold, witty, and filled with genuine human emotion, it quickly became one of the greatest operas of its time. A year later came Don Giovanni, a remarkable masterpiece where comedy and tragedy merged together, while the music explored the darkest corners of the human soul. Mozart then composed Così fan tutte, a graceful story of love, jealousy, and human nature, filled with elegance, humor, and unforgettable melodies. His greatest triumph, however, was the Magic Flute. More than an opera, it was a journey through wisdom, hope, and the triumph of light over darkness. Every note Mozart wrote seemed to transcend time itself. More than 2 centuries later, his music still fills the world's greatest concert halls, proving that true art never grows old. In 1791, Mozart's life became surrounded by one of the greatest mysteries in the history of music. One day, a mysterious man dressed in black arrived with an unusual commission to compose a Requiem. The identity of the client remained unknown, and the visit gave rise to countless legends. As he worked on the piece, Mozart's health continued to decline. Despite his worsening illness, he kept writing, determined to finish what would become his final masterpiece. A famous legend later claimed that Mozart believed he was writing the Requiem for his own funeral. Historians cannot confirm this story, but it has remained one of the most enduring myths surrounding his final days. On December 5th, 1791, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart died at just 35 years old, leaving his final masterpiece unfinished.